Hello everyone. Welcome back to my BNB Today spoiler channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Steffy Forrester Finnegan had spent years believing she knew exactly where her life was headed. She had built a family with John Finnegan, raised her children Kelly and Hayes, and survived more betrayals, rivalries, and family disasters than most people could imagine. But one reckless night with Carter Walton now threatened to tear that entire life apart, and the worst part was that Finn had no idea. He stood in front of her, asking for another chance, believing their biggest problem was Sheila Carter and the secret surrounding her trip to Monaco. Finn admitted that keeping Sheila's plans from Steffy had been a mistake. He wanted his wife to know that his family came first. Steffy listened quietly. Every apology only made her guilt heavier, because Finn was asking for honesty while she was carrying a secret that could destroy their marriage. "You deserve to know I'm choosing you," Finn said softly. "I just need to know if there's still an us." Steffy looked at him, but the word she needed to say refused to come. There was still an us. That was exactly what made everything so terrifying. If she told Finn about Carter, she could lose him. If she stayed silent, she'd be building their future on a lie. Carter had never planned for any of this either. His relationship with Daphne Rose Walton had already been falling apart after devastating news about their chances of having a child. Daphne believed her diagnosis meant the dream she and Carter shared was over. She wanted a biological child, and the slim possibility that pregnancy could still happen naturally hadn't been enough to calm her fears. Instead of holding on to Carter, she walked away, convinced she was saving him from a future he didn't want. That decision created a dangerous opening. Carter was vulnerable. Steffy was emotionally shattered after Monaco. One night was enough to create consequences neither of them could take back. The test. Now Steffy had another fear, one that wouldn't leave her alone. What if she was pregnant? At first she told herself she was imagining things. Stress could change her appetite. Guilt could make her feel sick. Fear could make every small symptom feel significant. But the possibility wouldn't disappear, and if Carter really was the father, everything changed. Steffy already had Kelly with Logan Spencer and Hayes with Finn. A child with Carter would create an entirely new, permanent connection to another man, one she never wanted romantically, but would be tied to forever. Worse, the baby would become a living reminder of her betrayal. She imagined Finn discovering the truth years later, looking at the child, and knowing exactly what had happened. She couldn't bear it. There was someone else she couldn't stop thinking about, too: Daphne. Her friend had walked away from Carter because she believed she could never give him the family he wanted. If Steffy was carrying Carter's baby, the irony would be almost unbearable. Daphne wanted a child, Steffy might be carrying one, and Carter was the father. For the first time, an unthinkable idea entered Steffy's mind. Maybe she didn't have to keep the baby. Maybe there was a way to turn an unforgivable mistake into something that could save someone else's dream. But before she could consider anything, she needed the truth. She needed a pregnancy test, and she needed to take it without Finn finding out. She waited until she was alone, then opened the box with trembling hands. One test could change 4 lives: Finn's, Carter's, Daphne's, and her own. She stepped into the bathroom and closed the door. Minutes later, she stared down at the result. Her face went completely still. It was not what she'd been praying for. Steffy was pregnant, a decision too heavy to carry alone. She sat alone for several minutes, unable to move, her mind racing through every possible consequence. Finn would be devastated. Carter would be forced to confront a future he never expected. Daphne could eventually learn that the child she'd dreamed about was tied to the very betrayal that ended her relationship. And Steffy herself would have to decide whether to raise Carter's child, or give that child a different future entirely. Her first instinct was to tell Finn. But the moment she imagined his reaction, fear took over. Their marriage had survived Sheila, Liam, hope, and countless old wounds. This was different. This wasn't another argument or misunderstanding. This was a baby. She placed the test in a drawer and closed it, just as she heard the front door. "Steffy," Finn called out, walking in with an expression that told her he was still hoping to repair their marriage. "I've been thinking about what I said. I don't want to lose you." She forced herself to breathe. "I don't want to lose you either." He stepped closer. Then let me prove to you that I'm done putting anything before our family." The words cut deeper than he realized. Steffy almost confessed everything right then, but the moment she imagined the look on his face when he learned Carter was the father, the words died before they reached her lips. Meanwhile, Carter was struggling with his own reality. Daphne was gone, and her decision to leave had left him angry, heartbroken, and confused. He couldn't understand why she believed walking away was better than facing their problems together. When Carter finally spoke with Steffy, neither of them could pretend Monaco hadn't happened. "You know this changes everything," Carter said. Steffy looked away. It already changed everything. He noticed something different about her. "You're hiding something." She didn't answer at first. "Carter, if this is about what happened between us, I understand why you're scared. But you don't have to carry this alone," he said. She finally looked at him. "What if I am pregnant?" Carter went silent. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then, quietly, "Are you?" Steffy nodded. His expression changed completely. He sat down, trying to process it. "A baby," he said quietly. She nodded again. "This could destroy my marriage. And it could destroy what was left of mine with Daphne," Carter replied. Neither of them knew what to say next, until Steffy asked the question neither of them expected. "An impossible idea. What if Daphne could have the baby?" Carter stared at her. Steffy pressed on before he could respond. "Think about it. Daphne wants to be a mother. You want a family. And I already have my children. Maybe this baby doesn't have to destroy everything." Carter shook his head immediately. "Steffy, you can't make a decision like that because you're afraid." "I know. You'd have to be certain. I am trying to be." He stood. "You're talking about giving away your own child." Her eyes filled with tears. "I'm talking about giving Daphne the family she believes she lost." Carter wasn't convinced. He knew Steffy was trying to fix an impossible situation, and he knew Daphne's emotions were already fragile. If she discovered Steffy was pregnant with his child, she might never forgive either of them. Still, the idea lingered in Steffy's mind. Then Carter's phone lit up, a message from Daphne. She'd been back to the doctor, and she had something important to tell him. Steffy watched him carefully. "What did she say?" Carter looked up. "She wants to see me." Neither of them knew that Daphne's next revelation was about to change everything. She wasn't calling to talk about their breakup. She had taken another pregnancy test, and this time, the result was different. Daphne's secret. Daphne stood alone in her bathroom holding the test, staring at it as though time had stopped. Her diagnosis had convinced her that motherhood was no longer possible, that her body had failed her, that Carter deserved someone who could give him the family he wanted, and that leaving him was the only way to stop disappointing him. Now everything she believed was being challenged. Daphne was pregnant. But she had already walked away from Carter, and she had no idea what had happened between him and Steffy while she was gone. She touched her stomach, overwhelmed by happiness and fear at once. She wanted to call Carter immediately, but another thought stopped her. What if he'd moved on? What if he'd found comfort with someone else? What if that someone was Steffy? The idea seemed impossible. But secrets like this rarely stay impossible for long. She called him anyway. Her voice trembled. "I need to see you." Carter glanced at Steffy. "I'll come." The moment the call ended, Steffy knew something was wrong. "Is she pregnant?" "I don't know," Carter said, but Steffy could see the uncertainty behind his eyes. For the first time, she understood how much more complicated this could become. If Daphne was carrying Carter's child too, the question of paternity, and the fallout from it, would become even more explosive. 2 pregnancies, 1 secret. Carter met Daphne later that day. She didn't waste time. "I'm pregnant." He stared at her. "What?" The doctors were wrong about one thing. It's unlikely, but it wasn't impossible. Emotion crashed over him. He wanted to hug her, to cry, to ask why she'd left in the first place. Instead he simply said, "Daphne, this is incredible." She searched his eyes. "Are you happy?" "Of course I am." But she noticed something behind his expression, something he wasn't relaxed about. "What happened while I was gone?" Carter's heart stopped. He knew he couldn't explain everything at once, but he also knew another secret was already growing between them, and it wouldn't stay buried. Meanwhile, Steffy came home to find Finn waiting with dinner, trying to rebuild their marriage without knowing the foundation beneath them was already cracked. "I want us to start over," he said. "I know I've made mistakes, but I don't want us to keep punishing each other." Steffy almost confessed, until her hand moved instinctively to her stomach. Finn noticed. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine." The lie came too quickly, and his suspicion grew. "What aren't you telling me?" She couldn't answer. At the same moment, Carter stood in front of Daphne, trying to find a way to explain a betrayal that had happened after she left. She noticed his silence. "Carter, look at me. Is there someone else?" He swallowed hard. Her eyes filled with tears. "Is it Steffy?" The question hit him like a punch. His silence was answer enough. She stepped backward. "Oh my God!" He moved toward her. "Daphne, please. You were with her. It happened when we were both in a terrible place. And now—" He couldn't lie. "Steffy is pregnant." Daphne's face went completely blank. Then she laughed bitterly. "So I left because I thought I couldn't give you a child. And now your best friend is carrying yours." He reached for her. She stepped away, and then placed a hand over her own stomach. "There's something else you don't know." She looked at him. "I'm pregnant too." The room fell silent. 2 women. 1 man. 2 pregnancies. And a secret that could destroy every relationship involved. The truth comes out. Carter couldn't speak. The future he'd imagined with 1 woman had become a nightmare involving 2 families. Daphne looked at him through tears. "I thought I couldn't have children. I left because I thought I was taking away the one thing you wanted most." "You never took anything away from me. But you were with Steffy." He lowered his head. "Yes." Daphne closed her eyes. She was hurt, but beneath the anger was something even more painful. She still loved him, and now she was carrying his child. The moment became even harder when Steffy arrived, knowing she couldn't hide any longer. Daphne turned to face her. "You knew?" Steffy nodded. "I found out before I knew about your pregnancy. You were going to give me your baby." Steffy didn't deny it. "I thought maybe it could make things right." "You thought giving me your child would erase what happened between you and Carter?" "No." "Then why?" Her eyes filled with tears. "Because I know how badly you wanted to be a mother. And because I was terrified of what this pregnancy would do to Finn, to my family, and to you." Daphne looked at Carter. "This isn't a gift, Steffy." "I know. A child isn't something you can use to repair a betrayal." "You're right." For the first time, Steffy stopped trying to control the outcome. She understood the decision couldn't be made from guilt. If she carried Carter's baby, she'd have to accept responsibility for that child. If Daphne carried his baby, she'd have to decide whether she could ever rebuild trust with him. And if Finn discovered Steffy's pregnancy, he would face a decision of his own. But secrets rarely stay hidden for long. Finn finds out. Finn eventually found the pregnancy test. He stared at it in disbelief. The moment Steffy walked into the room, she knew. His voice was barely audible. "Are you pregnant?" She couldn't lie anymore. "Yes." His face changed. "Is it mine?" She closed her eyes. Her silence told him everything. He stepped back. "Carter." She began crying. "Finn, I'm sorry." He looked devastated. "You said you wanted to save our marriage." "I did. And all this time you knew." "I was scared." He shook his head. "You weren't scared of losing me. You were scared of telling me the truth." She couldn't argue. The marriage they had fought so hard to protect had reached its breaking point. And yet the biggest surprise came when Finn didn't walk away immediately. He looked at Steffy, then at her stomach. This child didn't choose any of this. She nodded through tears. "I know." He took a long breath. "I need time." Carter and Daphne now faced their own impossible future. She still didn't know if she could forgive him, but her pregnancy had changed the meaning of everything. She had believed she wasn't capable of becoming a mother. Now she was. Carter had to decide whether he would fight for the woman he loved, or let guilt destroy what remained of their relationship. Steffy, meanwhile, faced the hardest decision of her life. She had once believed that giving her baby to Daphne might be the perfect solution. Now she understood there was no perfect solution, only choices and consequences. Her betrayal had set off a chain reaction involving 2 pregnancies, 2 marriages, and 2 families. And somewhere between the guilt, the heartbreak, and the uncertainty, Steffy finally faced the truth instead of running from it. She couldn't erase what happened with Carter. She couldn't hand away the consequences and pretend everything was normal. And she couldn't decide her child's future simply because she was afraid of losing Finn. But the truth was only beginning to come out. When Finn finally confronted Carter, one question hung between them. Was Carter prepared to become a father twice over, and could Steffy, Finn, and Daphne survive what came next? The answer would change the Forrester, Finnegan, and Walton families forever.